Absolutely. And Zach, going forward now, football, the expectations continue to rise as names continue to come in, as people are transferring in from USC, from Ole Miss, from Auburn, and the talent they've already have here. And then the coaching talent that has increased. Tom Allen has increased everything across the board, coaches and everything. And with that is going to come expectations, of course. And this season, man, it's a highly anticipated season coming up in the fall. And this could be, to me, it's the most anticipated football season in Indiana history because of the time, because of the social media, because of everyone being aware, and all of that. I cannot imagine a time where there is a more anticipated fall than this one is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably fair. I think, also just the restlessness of people wanting to get back in the arena, or not in the arena, the stadium. And after, kind of having to enjoy it from afar last year, I mean, Indiana at this point, I know there's been some kerfuffle around baseball attendance, and, Lord knows, as somebody who's active in that community, that the same could be said for Little Five. But as things stand for the fall, Indiana is planning for full attendance and planning for to be able to put as many people in Memorial Stadium as it'll hold, provided they show up. So, I at the same time, I've found myself saying more than once in the last few weeks, and I think I was even I remember, I'm not losing my mind that fast. I was on a radio show last night in Columbus where they were talking about expectations. And I said, at the same time, in my mind, Indiana fans, at some level almost need to be prepared to sort of see an 8-4 season and then maybe a Music City Bowl win as a good season. Because right now, listen, if you're Indiana and, all the stars align this season, you win 11 games, you beat Ohio State, you win the Big Ten East, that's great. But the Indiana as a program and the way it's been built these last few years, football is such an incremental gain sport because you have so many different moving pieces, from a 10-person coaching staff to 85 scholarships plus 30, 40 more walk-ons. You got 22 players on the field at any one time, so there's so many more moving pieces in that regard. It is kind of the ultimate sort of like just get 0.5% better every time you go out and do something sort of sport. And we've seen that. We've seen Indiana, not just under Tom Allen, but Kevin Wilson too, just sort of steadily raise the floor on the program in the way they recruited, and the way they staffed, and the way they schemed, and then ultimately in their results. And the opportunity I think Indiana has now, what quote unquote next in my mind, is just to make winning a habit. If you're Indiana, you've been to bowl games in 4 of the last 6 years. By all rights, it should be 5 and 7 after this season. Just make winning something that from the first day that a freshman walks into Memorial Stadium to the last day he walks out, it's not even a question. It's not something people talk about like, oh, it'd be great to make a bowl game, or, hey, our number one goal every year is to beat Purdue. It's just like, it's stuff that doesn't even necessarily need to be said. And I think you've seen the way that, for example, Pat Fitzgerald has done that at Northwestern, and Mark D'Antonio did certainly at Michigan State. But I mean, Northwestern, I think, is a really good example. You think about a couple of years ago, they went 3-9 at Northwestern. And I mean, there was a conference-wide inquest to say, hang on, what went wrong at Northwestern? And imagine what somebody would have said if you told them that 15, 20 years ago. And so my point is, if you're Indiana, you want to achieve as much as you can. Obviously, you don't want to limit your ambitions. But the opportunity, the next step here in my mind is just make winning such a habit that floor keeps getting raised and keeps getting raised. Because it's worth saying, Indiana didn't get where it is right now overnight. And so it can't look at whatever it feels like the next goal is. I think in Tom Allen's mind, it is to win the Big Ten, and say, well, we're just going to get there overnight. It took, 7, 8, 9 years across 2 coaching tenures of really solid, steady, patient, persistent investment and program building. And now you've given yourself the opportunity to take that next step. But I think it's important for everybody to remember that that next step, if anything, is only going to be harder than the ones Indiana's already taken. And so I think, this is a program now that just needs to develop this habit and this culture of winning that just says, the minimum expectation every year has been raised, and then you go from there.